Sox in the basement.
Got a comment on the YouTube, one of the shows. We get the same comment all the time. It's written differently, but every couple of episodes on the YouTube where people like to watch the show and instead of listening to the show, I get a comment like this. This was one of my favorites. Are you a big fan of Home Improvement, and are you impersonating Wilson standing behind the microphone like that? And I love that. Sure. Okay, fine. I don't put a camera directly on my face. Like, I'm not glamming it up. I'm an old radio guy. Like, this whole idea of everybody doing the video podcast, to me, personally, it's not my cup of tea. Like, so I don't worry about where the camera position is. So I'm going to try a little bit better today for the YouTube folks. And I think when the new studio goes in, the old studio had a better camera angle. The new studio should have a better camera angle. The temporary studio, it just isn't working. The way that everything is set up, every time I try something different, I get weird shadows, or you get a reflection of me in the mirror that's off to my side, and then that's really distracting. So this is about where it all sets up. I'm more focused on the show and the audio quality than whether or not my face is in front of the camera. But if it makes you feel better, I'll peek out and wave every once in a while. Okay? You've changed your angle. People were complaining about the fact your face was right up on the screen. Thank you so much, my friend.
Yeah, I think what they want me to do is get as far back as possible so you can't see. So
we were getting a look at your nose hairs. I mean, like
they are prodigious. They spread the whole face.
It was like a grouping of redwoods in the center of the screen. So I mean, it was probably a good thing that we.
I'm an environmentalist. I am preserving nature, one nose hair at a time.
I found it interesting. Chris Bassett. $18.5 million. Is that what he was for 1 year?
$18.5 million for the increasingly corpsing Chris Bassett.
Yeah, and Eric Fetty was $1.5 million. Now listen, Chris Bassett over his career, better pitcher. I get that.
Very much so. Yeah.
But just the moment I saw that, I thought to myself, is he really that good anymore? Like, I was surprised when people were linking him to the White Sox. I could pick another, 3-4 guys that were within the White Sox price range in my mind that I thought were better than Chris Bassett. I mean, if you look at his last couple of years, look at his 2024 was atrocious. His whip was 1.462. His ERA was in the 4s. He had 31 starts for 171 innings. But when you compare that to what Eric Fetty did in 2024, you'd much rather take Eric Fetty. Eric Fetty had about the same amount of innings, and his whip was 1.162, and his ERA was 3.30. Now, last year, Bassett rebounds a little bit, right? Pitches 107 innings, but he's still worse than that 1.3 whip that I always say I want to see in a pitcher. He's probably a 4th or a 5th starter, right? When I look at Fetty being off and the reasons that we described on the last episode, which looks like he's nibbling at the plate and he's putting guys on more often through the walk, and that is creating more problems for him. That going back to a team that had unlocked his best, and he seems to be very excited to be back with the White Sox, I would rather take that. And to be honest with you, I also want a motivated pitcher. Eric Fetty took $1.5 million. This is a guy that was like trade deadline a year and a half ago. Teams were fighting to get. And now here's a guy taking $1.5 million to compete for a spot in a rotation on a team like the White Sox that have lost over 100 games in 2 seasons. In each of 2 seasons. Eric Fetty's his back's against the wall in his major league career. I want motivated guys like that who feel comfortable. So in my mind, I was like, we can't afford Bassett, right? Like, Jerry Reinsdorf's cheap and he should be able to go out and get a pitcher for $18.5 million. And it's a shame that he doesn't. But the $1.5 million signing of Eric Fetty may turn out by the end of the year of being a much better deal than the $18.5 million for Chris Bassett.
Well, that's one of the things that I used to give Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams no credit for, was their choice of free agents sometimes was based on name and dollar amount to prove us wrong, right? To prove White Sox fans wrong, to prove people out in the media, podcasters, whoever was saying that Jerry Reinsdorf was cheap, that the White Sox are an organization that won't spend money. You end up with Dallas Keuchel because he's a guy with a Cy Young in his past and he's still commanding a $20 million salary, but he's not as good as some of the other options that were out there that year that might have been cheaper, right? I understand when they were going for Zach Wheeler, like that's a premium get, but when you start settling for names, and Chris Bassett becomes a name, right? He's a name guy because he had some success after leaving the White Sox the first time. And now, though, at 36 years old, he's falling apart. So what I do appreciate about Chris Getz is that when he's picking up free agents, what he's doing is he's really looking, and think about like Mike Tauchman last year. Were there better outfielders available than Mike Tauchman? Yeah. But Mike Tauchman was the kind of guy that was going to contribute within budget, and was going to be somebody that you sit there and you look at the end of the year and go, okay, it was worthwhile. The 20 million that he saved trading Luis Robert Jr. and getting the Mets to pick that all up, he's used it, I think, pretty brilliantly when you stop and consider that, like you said, Eric Fetty now has to have a gigantic chip on his shoulder because this is it. If he fails with the White Sox this year, he is done with Major League Baseball. Maybe he can go back to Korea, but he's certainly not going to be pitching around in the States anymore. And I like that. I like him having an edge, just like the young guys that are competing, Sean Burke and Jonathan Cannon and Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith and all these guys all should have an edge on them. And that's how you start to build something too, is young guys and veterans who have some motivation beyond I'm here to collect a paycheck. And I think we saw some of that with the last rebuild where you extended some guys and the paychecks were there. So was the hunger really there? I feel like this is a hungry team, which is going to be fun to watch because they've all got something to prove. Tell me up and down the lineup who doesn't have something to prove. Even Murakami, who's hitting bombs in practice, everybody's still going, yeah, but is he going to make contact in a real game against Major League pitching?
Well, and Will Venable's trying to already instill that edge in that competition. I thought it was really interesting that his comments, I want to say it was yesterday, I believe. He talks about Shane Murphy, who gets a non-roster an NRI invite to spring training. He's originally a draft pick. He's going to be Rule 5 status coming up. Here's a guy who's a lefty that I don't think anybody's projected to make the team. And he sits there and he waxes poetic about how he had the best day in there and that everybody else should take example for the way that he did his bullpen session. Like he's like Venable's like, hey, it's competition time, guys. This guy who really shouldn't have a chance, he impressed me more than the rest of you. That was his public comment. And I love that stuff. And I want to see that all throughout spring training. Before we get into some of the White Sox news and buzz and possible people that could be coming to the team and who could be winning a position, don't forget the $1,000 guest bounty is still going on. Brought to you by Cork and Carry at the Park. Best guest of the offseason gets $1,000. Another guest coming up here very shortly that's going to be an entry. Still time to get in there because we're going to probably make the decision on the winner at some point in the month of March, so I can squeeze in another guest. Just go to soxandbasement.com, use the contact form, reach out to us if you have somebody you think is going to be interesting that could win best guest of the offseason. And Cork and Carry is the sponsor of that, 33rd and Princeton, shadow of the ballpark. See everything they have going on at corkandcarry.com. I remembered a story, though, the other day that I wanted to share on the show, if you'll indulge me for a moment. I don't know if you've watched the U.S. women's hockey team in their first 4 games or 5 games they played so far. But one of the stars of that team, and she's a beast. She's the A.J. Pierzynski of that team. She's also one of the White Sox athletes. You know how they sign local athletes to like be ambassadors and stuff like that. Abby Murphy is from my neighborhood here in Evergreen Park. And it has been so much fun to watch Abby go out there, be a pest, make sick passes, incredible assist. She has a goal, I think, at this point as we're talking. I would imagine she'll get more. She's a key cog on that team. And I would sit down in my basement in Evergreen Park when she was in high school playing with the juniors, with the under 18s on Team USA. And she would come on my local show, the EP podcast. And she is one of the nicest kids in the whole world. And her family's wonderful. And right now in Evergreen Park, it's just Abby Murphy fever here, where the show is being recorded, where you're listening to Sox in the Basement. If you go outside, there's signs everywhere for Abby Murphy. Like there are watch parties at every bar in this area here where I'm living. That's what's going on. And it struck me the other day. I was thinking to myself, like I wanted to say something about, Abby and her family. And I realized I've never told this story before. I owe the Murphys so much for Sox in the Basement. There's a Sox in the Basement connection between Abby Murphy and her family and Sox in the Basement. The first real advertiser on Sox in the Basement over 8 years ago was Cork and Kerry. And I knew nobody over at Cork and Kerry. And I'm sitting at a bar in Evergreen Park. Here's Ed Murphy, Abby's dad, sitting there. And he goes, how's the podcast doing? And I go, it's going okay. And he goes, well, you make any money doing it? I said, I'm making money with the local show, the EP podcast, but I don't know what to do yet with the White Sox show. I'm just kind of doing it for fun. And he goes, I know the guy that owns Cork and Kerry. And I go, really? And he gets on the phone, immediately reaches out, makes the introduction. We have a meeting. Of course I have to show like this is how many people listen to the show, and they had to listen to the show, and it was like, oh yeah, we would really like to work with Sox in the Basement. And I was like, I'd really like to work with you guys. But it's a long relationship now with Cork and Kerry at the park and Cork and Kerry. And it was the Murphys who put the two of us together. And it just hit me the other day when I was sitting there, I was watching her, I was like, I owe them a lot, that group. Like, I'm already rooting for her because she's local and she's a hell of a kid and she's a great player. I call her a kid. She's an adult now, but I mean, remember, I have an Abby Murphy autographed jersey that she's given me. She gifted sticks to my son when he played hockey, and she was still a high school kid at the time, right? And she's easy to root for. But I've never shared that story before. And as you're sitting there and you're watching your TV and you see her scoring, I want you to know not only is she a great hockey player, that's a great family. And Sox in the Basement owes them a lot because they made that connection right away. And it was after Cork and Kerry was nice enough to become a part of Sox in the Basement that other people said, you know what, I'm going to jump in there too. We would not be doing this. I don't know if we'd be doing this show if it wasn't for the Murphys. So I hope she goes out there, she wins gold, and she crushes Canada and continues to stick in their heads because they are You watch Canadian Twitter during that hockey game the other day with Team USA and the Canadians. They hate her. She's the AJ Pierzynski of that team. I mean, it's the coolest thing in the world. I would bring her on as one of the off-season guests, but I'd win the $1,000 myself. So we'll wait until it's all over, and hopefully we'll have Abby on at some point to talk White Sox and hockey as well.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a great thing. And, I'm very appreciative of the fact that they were able to get all that done before I even joined the show, because I know I would have helped. Because they would have never recommended you at that point. They'd have been like, well, no. I mean, the one guy's pretty good, but his friend, you seen his nose hairs on the YouTube?
It's
really the eyebrows that usually get.
I'm just so happy you're backed up from the camera. I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, I remember when the show was audio only. I think everybody was happier in general.
All right. I want to talk about Chris Getz, and I want to talk about that Chris Getz just realized today, it looks like. It looks like Ken Rosenthal finally got him to understand that Luisangel Acuna was not a switch hitter. So I want to talk about that before I do that.
Oh, whoops.
And it's amazing to me. 4 different times in 4 different interviews that we know of. There could have been other times he said it too. He's referred to him as a switch hitter, and he's not a switch hitter. But for exterior windows, doors, patio doors, and storm doors, look no further than Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest. No high pressure sales. You go in and see them, an owner in showroom and on site, to answer all of your questions and make sure things are done properly. They use all of their own installers. They don't farm out the work. They've been doing it that way for 40 years in Oak Forest since 1985. With all major brands custom made and no stock items for a perfect fit, check out Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest, a half block east of 159th and Ridgeland at 6280 159th Street. See more at windowdooroakforest.com.
Here's the thing. I blame like Facebook Reels or Instagram, because sometimes people will post videos that are clearly mirrored, right? And must be what he's seeing is these situations where the video is reversed, and he thinks he just plays for a STEM team, which is great because that means he's into science, technology, engineering, and things like that.
Right,
so
right.
He thinks he's a smart player because he plays for STEM.
Hey, listen,
I'm reaching here a little bit, but I'm trying to help the guy out.
Here's the thing. I love making fun of Kenny Williams. And one of the things I always, whenever I get on a roll, start making fun of Ken Williams, former general manager, team president, whatever he was, kept giving himself more titles, hiring his son to do whatever he was doing in there, and basically making a mess out of everything after the World Series. whenever I make fun of him, one of the things I like to make fun of is the time that he made the trade for the player and he had actually acquired the wrong guy because they had similar names.
Yeah.
And it was like he didn't know that he had gotten the wrong guy. This reminded me of it on a very small level. But the difference is this seems really innocent. Like, this seems like he was just kind of trying to get excited about his new acquisition. And I mean, it doesn't matter if he's a switch hitter. Like, I don't want to be a Chris Getz apologist, but does it matter if he's a switch hitter? Like, on 4 different times this offseason, Getz, once during Sox Fest, I think he in front of the press corps one time on a podcast, like he has referred to him when he's listing everything that Luisangel Acuna does. One of the things he'll throw in there with all of his other things that he actually does do, that plays all these different positions and, his prospect status, all this other stuff, he throws in switch hitter. And he's not a switch hitter. So his statement put out by Ken Rosenthal a little bit ago on the X, quote, "So I probably have been getting carried away describing his versatility."
That's a nice way of putting it.
"He can play every position on the field. Why does it have to stop there? I called Luisangel and I told that even though he's just right-handed, I still love him."
I mean, that's a good way to play it off in the media right there. That's a good quote.
I mean, it's a solid way to do it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, don't you? I mean, like, I don't know if he really would do it, but in my mind, I picture Kenny Williams when somebody calls him out for doing that, just insisting that he's switch hitter, being like, "How do you know he's not a switch hitter?" Going to his manager saying, "Teach that kid how to switch hit. I don't want to look stupid." Like, so I like the way that gets.
I can see somebody capable of switch hitting just by looking at him.
Right.
Okay.
He'd be telling somebody, "Find some film of this guy swinging from the other side of the plate. I don't want to be wrong." So I mean, I like that Getz did that.
I'm talking about, him playing for Stem instead of the Mets. There you go.
Right. Yeah.
And people make mistakes with him. I've been calling him Luisangel because I'm an uncultured, uncouth man.
I was going to point that out, as you've been calling him by the wrong name the entire time. But whatever.
I mean, I can't always talk about guys like Kylie Tiel or Miguel Vargas or I'm not even going to try Munetake Murakami.
Like,
by the way, they couldn't even get.
I'm going to be easy on Getz.
Murakami's.
I'm going to be easy on Getz because I've messed up some names before. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll be easy on him on that one. Honestly, when he was saying he was a switch hitter, I was like, "Oh, he's a switch hitter." I mean, it's not like I was going to look it up. I was like, the GM says he's a switch hitter, so he's a switch hitter. So kudos to the people that were like, "No, he's not."
Yeah.
I would have been fooled for 6 months.
Well, the first time he appeared in a spring training game where he's batting righty against a righty, we were like, "What is he doing?"
Right. What are we doing here? What have we decided he doesn't hit that well from that side? So yeah, no, I love it. It's one of my favorite stories of the early part of spring training. Another one though that's really interesting. I saw that MLB owners voted in favor of now strictly enforcing the rule that keeps the first base and third base coaches inside the batter's box. Or not the batter's box, the coaching box.
In their coaching box.
The coaching box. If they're in the batter's box, we got problems. If they're the coaching box, all right.
Yeah, if they're standing there, okay, it's all in the hips,
Now, this is interesting because this had to happen in Game 7 of the World Series to get people to pay attention. But coaches have been doing this for years. They just work their way down the line. And they're basically, I mean, you'll see some of them halfway down the line. And for the same reason that you don't want to see a guy who's taking his warm-up swings outside of the hitter's circle because he's lining up directly behind the catcher or playing games about where he wants to stand because he's trying to pick up things that the pitcher is doing. You don't want those coaches moving down the line because it's easier for them to find tips and tells in the pitcher. It's almost like sign stealing, or at least trying to find, like, he's got a tip, he's got a tell, he's showing this off, and they're picking it up because they're getting a great angle on the pitcher throughout his entire mechanical delivery. And there were accusations or worries or fears or whatever happened in Game 7. But in Game 7 of the World Series, if you missed it, didn't notice this, they were forcing them back into those boxes. There were complaints. And now here in the offseason, or as the spring training is about to get started, it mandated this is going to be strictly enforced. So look, baseball is a game of trying to find an advantage. That's why it's always interesting to me when people get like, I think unwritten rules are stupid, but I also understand that people are always trying to find an advantage in baseball, right? Like the thing where they were using cameras in Houston and then signals with garbage cans, that's too much, right? But I think that if a guy is standing at second base and he notices that the pitcher is doing something weird and comes back to the dugout and tells the rest of the team, hey, when he does this, it's a fastball. I think that's all fair in baseball, right? So
that's got to be
right.
That's got to be.
That's what the game is picking up these tells. So I don't think there's anything wrong if a first base or third base coach sees something, but what they're saying is you have to do it within the rules. So we're going to put you back in this box.
Well, and if you let them get too close, with PitchCom, I don't know if they can pick something up there. If they're getting back away from the box, if they're able to then see what the catcher's putting down signal wise and able to signal, that's a problem. There's a lot of things that can go on with the base coaches that the game does not intend for. But you're right. I mean, if you're sitting there in the dugout, you're at second base, you're one of the coaches. If you're doing the old trick where you put your hat up in front of your face and isolate the pitcher by looking through the little holes, the little sweat holes in it, so that you can see what the pitcher's doing without the distractions, and you can pick something up, pitchers have tells, and it's fair to sit there and say, a guy stays flat-footed when he's throwing a fastball, but he jumps up on his toes when he's going to throw a curveball and know what's coming.
Or changes the position of his glove.
Yeah, or whatever it is.
That's one of the bigger tells that I always notice with these pitchers is that you'll get they'll change the curve of the glove, or because they need to take a different grip on the ball, they almost adjust the way that they're covering the ball with their glove.
Right.
And smart players pick that up. The guys that are standing at the top of the dugout are trying to pick it up. See, that's the funny thing about this, right? Like the coaches will move back into the boxes. I'm not saying that they shouldn't make them follow the rules. Rules are there for a reason, right? But if there's a tell that's happening the whole game, trust me, your smart player, and every team's got a couple of them, that stands up at the top step of the dugout is in that position as well. And he's seeing it too. So they're going to see it from the dugout too. So I don't know how much, it's really obvious when it's the coach on the field doing it, but the guy who's standing at the top step of the dugout, who's also watching that pitcher and then yelling down the dugout to his coach going, hey, when he does this, they're still going to pick it up. So I don't know how much it prevents. I guess what it really does is it maybe makes it harder to translate it in between pitches to the batter, because the coach is going to be the coach that's up there that's down the line is the guy who's signaling the batter. He's giving him signs. He's telling him what to do. So maybe at least by moving them back, it takes longer for the message to make it to the batter. But I do think eventually they're still going to pick up those tells. They're still going to see the things that they're still going to get tips of these pitches because the guys in the dugout can see from that angle as well. So look, I love any time they kind of shore up something in Major League Baseball. Anytime they sit there and say we're going to fix this or we're going to adjust this. I mean, it's an ever evolving game. But I also think it's one of those games. This is a game of trying to find advantages. This is boys playing a man, or these are men playing a boys game, right? I mean, if they could get away with something, they would do it. If they could put a piece of gum on the bottom of the ball to make it move different, they would do it. That's why we have all these rules, because that's what baseball. Baseball is the trickiest game in history, right? Like, go back and read about the early days of baseball and the things that they used to do to try to get advantages over each other. It's literally a cheater's game.
Oh, yeah.
It's a cheater's game. It's a vicious cheater's game, where guys would slide into each other with metal spikes and try to take out each other's ankles. Okay. I mean, it's evolved, but I mean, it's always going to add its heartbeat. The game that everybody's trying to find a little advantage in.
Yeah. Well, and think about even things like spider tack or pine tar being used to help you get a better grip on the baseball. And the lengths guys would go to. Remember, Jose Contreras would not only would he stretch his fingers out by using a softball to get the forkball grip that he used, but if you watched him pitch, every pitch he set up with the forkball grip, and then he changed it when he was in his windup. He got into a different grip, a fastball, whatever he was going to throw, and that was partially to throw guys off because he could be in the forkball and throw it, or he could be in the forkball and move out of it, but it was harder to go from just holding the ball and getting into that because he had to spread his fingers so damn wide for Senor Tumbolina. But You're right. You're always going to find an advantage where you can take it. And there's never going to be a point at which Major League Baseball can sit there and say, absolutely nobody is doing anything that they shouldn't be doing in order to try and get some sort of an advantage. So it's part of the game. It's almost a beautiful part of the game because of the mental aspect of it, the strategy aspect of it. And yeah, with mental aspects and strategy comes, the occasional, maybe we could get away with this. But yeah, you get back to garbage cans and cameras. Some of the stuff, it's like, well, you can't do that.
Speaking of getting away with things, a weird story popping up as we're sitting here talking. We've been interrupted by Nick Castellanos. As you know, Nick Castellanos' home run once interrupted one of the most uncomfortable things in broadcasting. Remember that? But Nick Castellanos has been released, and I think they didn't even want him to come to camp, and they were hoping to trade him.
Yeah,
and now he's being released. I don't think he makes sense for the White Sox. You and I were talking about this beforehand. I don't know if he makes sense now when you have Hayes. You would be making Benintendi move to DH permanently. You'd have Hayes and Castellanos, and then Luisangel or whoever wins the center field job, and that would pretty much be it. And I think they want to see what some of these young guys can do. So I don't think the Sox would be in on Nick Castellanos. But the weirdest thing is when he found out he was released, his Instagram post is handwritten notes that he took pictures of and then put them all like in a row in a post where you scroll through and you read them. And the first 2 pages are all about the fact that he thanking people and I love my time in Philadelphia and everything like that. And then the next 2 pages are about the Miami incident, where it sounds like he's saying, and I haven't had a chance to read all through it while you're doing it, but as I've been scanning it while you were talking, it sounds like he's saying that the reason he's out in Philadelphia is because he brought a beer into the dugout during the 9th inning of a game that he had already been removed from. And because he brought the beer into the dugout, this has been the problem. And that somebody's writing an article on it that hasn't come out yet, and he's mad about the way he's being described in it. So he's getting in front of it with this letter. So I don't know if I want his drama either on the South Side. I mean, hell of a ball play. A couple years ago, Nick Castellanos, I'll take your drama, I'll take your beer. He's a gamer, right? Yeah. I don't know if he's a fit now, but that is, man, I love when messy things happen. Like that looks like something messy happened in Philadelphia at the end.
I like it.
If he came to the South Side, we wouldn't care. Mark Burley once went out and pitched and won a game in the World Series after pounding a 6-pack. Or I think now he's drank a whole keg. I'm not sure whether the story continues.
The legend definitely grows as time goes on.
He did a beer bong right before he walked out of the bullpen. I think that's what I heard. Yes. So Southsiders wouldn't care that Nick Castellanos brought a beer into the dugout in a game that he wasn't going to play in anymore because he'd already been used. Like, I don't think anybody would care. Ozzie Guillen would sit there and drink it with him, I think. I mean, I don't want to speak for Ozzie, but I don't think it would be a big problem. But clearly it was a problem, or at least he thinks it was a problem enough that he wrote about it. When he got released here by the Phillies. So
I'm going to go out on a limb and guess it has to do more with the fact that he only hit 250 last year with 17 homers.
That could be the reason.
And was making $20 million.
That could be the reason.
Might be the reason. But yeah, it was weird that the Phillies would sit there and say, don't even show up to spring training. You're not going to be on this team, before they even had the chance to trade him. And he was on my mind because my brother-in-law is a Phillies fan. And we were talking about the Luis Robert Jr. trade and how he's like, well, I'm sad the Phillies didn't get him. I'm like, well, don't be. You don't have to be sad about that. He goes, well, I thought you guys would swap him straight up for Nick Castellanos. And I laughed. I said, no, there was no way that they were going to take $20 million on for $20 million in that situation, because Castellanos, like you said, doesn't make sense. And he doesn't make sense at a high price tag. And if they hadn't signed Austin Hayes, I would have said Castellanos is free to come here and, just figure out what beers you want. And if you wanted to, go to Cork and Carry at the park, figure out what they've got on tap.
Look, I'm okay with him drinking in the dugout. I mean, honestly, I don't care. They have a beer. I like my team loose. This is baseball. Babe Ruth used to go over in the middle of innings and go have a beer across the street, leave his glove in the corner of the outfield, walk through the fence, go across the street, get himself a beer, have a hot dog, come back, and play the outfield the next inning. I'm okay with it, Nick. You don't need to write at the end of your handwritten note, I will learn from this. Oh, it just gives me the cringes. Stop it.
Don't learn.
Is that where we are at? Is that where we're at now? We're learning from the fact that he brought a beer in?
No, don't learn from that.
Don't learn from it. You're a millionaire. Drink your beer in the dugout. Find yourself a team that doesn't care if you brought a beer in the dugout. That's my wish for you, Nick Castellanos. Maybe it is the South Side. We probably fit. That music means the Sox nerd, Dave Marin, is on the line once again with all those trivia nuggets and tidbits that he puts up on the scoreboard at the rate, and he brings them to us each and every week here on Sox in the Basement, brought to you by the Village of Lamont. Want to experience a downtown with real history, great eats and drinks, and green spaces filled with adventure? Visit the Village of Lamont. Shop, dine, drink, explore. See the Lamont Unlocked podcast hosted by yours truly as I go around and eat all their food and drink all their booze and see everything else they have going on in Lamont at lamontdowntown.com. Nerd, what do you got for me?
Fellas, how about some info on two players, Jordan Hicks and Tristan Peters, who have been mentioned on recent Sox in the Basement episodes. Hicks, a right-handed pitcher, is one of the more interesting acquisitions the Sox have made lately. He broke in with a blazing fastball for the St. Louis Cardinals in 2018 and 2019. On May 20th, 2018, Hicks threw two pitches clocked at 105 miles an hour. At that time, only Aroldis Chapman had hit 105. Since then, only Ben Joyce in 2024 has joined this list. In early 2019, Hicks was dominating as the Cardinals closer, converting 14 of his 15 save chances before he was felled by an elbow injury that resulted in Tommy John surgery. That, plus an opt-out in 2020 because of his status as a high-risk individual with his type 1 diabetes, has put 105 in the rearview mirror. But he is still second in the StatCast era with 1,733 pitches of over 100 miles an hour. Chapman, Hicks' Boston teammate in 2025, is first at 2630. What Hicks splits or numbers do I like? He is limiting right-handed batters to a 216, 300, and 325 slash line in his career, though that has increased in each of the last 3 seasons. Hicks has not allowed a grand slam while facing 21 batters with the bases loaded since his big league debut in 2018. Only 22 other pitchers fit that category. He is really good at stranding runners. Hicks has inherited 80 runners in his career and stranded 64, that's 80%. After his rookie campaign, that number rises to 89%. As a shout out to listener Craig, who on a recent episode floated the possibility of Tristan Peters being in the outfield mix, here are a few nuggets on Peters. He's a Saluki. Peters spent one great season at Southern Illinois University, which has produced a lot of really good big league players, including Dave Stieb, Steve Finley, Dwayne Kuiper, and Jerry Hairston Jr. The last Saluki to play for the Sox was Oak Forest's Jason Frazier, a pitcher in 2011. In 2021, Peters hit .355 in leading SIU to its winningest campaign since 1990. He's a Canadian. Peters was born in Winkler, Manitoba, about 90 minutes southwest of Winnipeg. He is the first big leaguer from the town. As you would suspect, the town of 13,745 has produced a handful of NHL players. Before I get to my zinger, let me remind you, gems like these and others are available on my blog, which you can access at soxinthebasement.com, and I am also posting daily on X and Threads. My zinger, Eric Fedde is back. Only 8 players were his teammate when Fedde was with the Sox in 2024, and one of them was catcher Corey Lee. With Lee behind the plate, Fedde posted a 3.84 ERA while holding opponents to a 218, 274, 410 slash time in 12 starts. He was way better throwing to the beleaguered Martin Maldonado, however. In 8 starts, Fedde had a 1.74 ERA and did not allow a home run in 47 and 1/3 innings while teaming with Maldonado. I think on one of my first appearances on Sox in the Basement in 2022, the episode was headlined, Sox Nerd Accentuates the Positives. The fact that I could find something positive on Martin Maldonado is proof that this still rings true. That's it, guys. Probably more than you wanted to know about Heaters, Hicks, and Salukis.
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found. And always on soxinthebasement.com.